It's fascinating because obviously these are things that are going around now in social media and online a little bit about how we treat ourselves and self care and the importance of it. Obviously, for just mental health to live your life day to day, but I've never heard it linked to performance because obviously
Uh,
you have the barriers of physical performance, whereas you've strained a calf, you've rolled an ankle,
right.
things like that. But we've never heard, at least I've never heard really so much data on that. If you're treating yourself better and you're treating your people around you better, you're more likely to have a higher level of, I guess, mental resilience in athletic performance. I guess in business performance as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you're not as vulnerable. You're not as fragile. You have a core sense
Right.
of value that isn't dependent on how you do today. As long as you control the things you can control, winning and losing is generally out of your control. But the way
Right.
you treat others is always within your control. And your sense of esteem, your sense of value, your sense of being a worthwhile person is connected clearly and directly to your treatment of other people. And that is an evolutionary marker that those who went off on their own and did their own thing
Mm-hmm.
um, often didn't survive. People came together and depended on one another. And the more you cared for one another when you were in trouble, the early man found that you had a much better chance of surviving mankind when you actually, that's why we're a tribal species. We tend to want to connect to others so that we don't have food, someone has food. When someone's sick, you have an interdependency. And that when you go off on your own, you're counter to the way our species has survived for thousands of years. So I think there is a marker there. I call it the hidden scorecard, that your treatment of others
Right.
is directly connected to your sense of value and your sense of worthwhileness.
And what are you seeing in the people that you've studied that perhaps have a not optimal scorecard? Like what are you seeing for how their inner world is like and how they're showing up when they need to perform?
Well, it's so interesting that you can get to the top and climb over dead bodies getting there.
Sure.
You don't care about others. You don't. All you care about is number one, and you're obsessed with achievement. And it's possible to become number one, but it's very difficult to feel after you've achieved it. You don't really feel that satisfied. Is that all there is? You
Hmm.
have this sense of hollowness, and then you got to win another gold medal, and then another gold medal. You
Right.
never have the sense that I'm only as good as I've done on an international Olympic scale.
Right.
And that's where you're fragile. And then what we find is that people whose identity has become their score and it's all about them, they tend to have a lot higher level of stress hormones because there's so much more at risk. You're really risking your identity as a human being. If you lose to this turkey, who are you? Because you don't really have an identity apart from this. So you are more fragile. And you tend to be more alone. You suffer more loneliness. You suffer a sense of, what am I doing all this for? And what we found was that people who have what I would call a self-transcending purpose, a purpose for doing this that has much more to do about others than you, that you're really trying to be an inspiration for others. You're going to make a difference, as Andre Agassi did with when he repurposed his career. He built schools for young developing boys and girls to give them a chance at an upgrade, up living, and really trying to develop a sense of upwardly mobile hope in the world, to give them an education they would never have gotten.
Hmm.
That would have been something that would have been outside the scope of what we would think of as performance psychology.
Right.
But that's what was the difference for him. And he went back to number one in the world, and he developed a relationship at his Hall of Fame induction. He had a lot of the folks who were in those schools get up and give testimony to the way these schools have. He had one in Las Vegas that changed their lives.
Wow.
And there was not a dry eye in the audience. I mean, and so what we've tried to do is to help people understand that life is much more than just about you. You can chase achievement, but more important than the chase itself is who you become as a human being and your treatment of others in your chase to the top. That's the ultimate victory.